that state was like for that specific one was $500. But a lot of times parents are able to tap into $5,000 or
Oh yeah.
$6,000 for
My
services.
daughter
So,
gets $8,000 a quarter.
wow.
Yeah.
Wow. And that money is just sitting there, like waiting for these kids to
Yep.
access it.
Yep.
It's not stealing money from any
Mm-mm.
pot or anything like that. The money
Nope.
is there
Yeah, and
specifically
I
for
think that's
this.
one of the things you have to keep as part of the conversation.
Hello, everyone. I'm so excited about this conversation today because we're diving into something that is changing the game for tutors in a big way. School choice is exploding across the country, and with it comes a huge opportunity for tutors like you and me. Whether you're working solo, building a team, this moment in education is unlike anything that we've seen before. And today I am chatting with Sharon Canaday, who's been right in the middle of this movement, seeing firsthand how tutors can really thrive as families seek out alternatives to traditional schooling. So we're going to unpack what does this all mean for your business? How do you serve these families? And why is now the time to position yourself at the forefront of the future of education? And Sharon is going to be one of our incredible speakers at Impact 8. And I know she is really excited about sharing a lot of this information with us. Welcome, Sharon. Glad to have you here.
Glad to be here.
Can you share a little bit about your background and what drew you to this whole topic of school choice?
I got plopped down in the middle of it. We moved to Arizona in the middle of COVID 2020.
Okay.
And Arizona is the forefront of school choice. They were the first state to adopt ESAs in 2011.
Wow.
And at first, they were limited to certain people groups within the student community, the kids with IEPs, the kids that are military children, and children that are current wards of the state or previous wards of the state. Our daughter is a previous ward of the state. She's adopted out of the foster system. So right as soon as we got here, I worked on getting her into ESA and we started taking advantage of it as parents. But once I started my business a little bit later, I started realizing, oh my goodness, this is an amazing market to be able to market to these parents who have all this money to spend on their children's
Yeah.
education. And it also became something where, and this is part of what my talk is going to be about, is just it shifts you from being, and I hate the term just a tutor, but this is a different sense of that word. You're not just a tutor, you're also an advocate. And you're also a guide to these parents as they're navigating this because it can be really confusing and really overwhelming. And I've really had to educate myself and become that resource for parents as they're beginning to take part in this program and help them learn how to tap into it.
Yeah,
That's
that's
what I want.
amazing. So it really became based off of your own need as a parent. And then you're
Mhm.
like, wait a minute, I'm a tutor and I can help educate other parents so that they can, I wouldn't say take advantage of, because it's really not taking
Tap
advantage
into.
of, but it's tapping into
Mhm.
those resources that are going to help them get the services that they need because
Right.
they shouldn't always have to come out of pocket. Yeah, I love it. I love it. Now, we've mentioned this term ESA. Can you tell me what does that mean?
So the whole school choice discussion is a controversial discussion, especially when we all have people in our lives, our previous clients when we were in the school, who are typically quite against it. They are fed a line from their teachers' unions about how horrible school choice is. And a lot of times you hear a lot of talk about vouchers and how terrible they are. And I'll touch on that in my talk, but basically what it boils down to is vouchers is a misnomer for the whole concept of school choice. And I have seen in the last year or so that the conversation is shifting. We're talking less about vouchers and more about school choice, which is a better word to use to talk about the whole umbrella of what's going on. But underneath that umbrella is ESA. That's one type of school choice. Vouchers is one type, ESA is another type. And what ESAs are is it's either a savings account or scholarship dollars from the state. Often in Arizona, it is, and in many other states, it's the money that your student would get if they were enrolled in public school. They're allowing you to use that money to help your child in other places outside of public school. And yeah, so ESA in Arizona, it stands for the Empowerment Scholarship of Arizona, but it gets used in other states because it just stands for Education Service something, education some. I should know that, but I don't. But it
That's
is a
okay.
generic,
It's good to know that ESA actually stands for different things depending on the different states and what does it mean and how do you go
yeah.
about it. And
It's usually
we,
a education savings account, I
yeah,
believe what it
yeah.
is.
Awesome. It's almost like micro schooling in a way. Like when people
Microschooling is a
think about,
part of the movement, but it's a small part. There's actually a lot more to it than that.
yeah. So you've got like parents who are homeschooling their kids that would take
Hmm.
advantage of this.
Yep.
Do kids who are special ed but are not receiving all of the services that they need in the school system, could they tap into these funds as well? Or is that kind of double tapping because you're
That's double tapping. If your child is
okay,
enrolled in public school, you're not usually allowed to take part in ESA because your
okay.
dollars are going to the public school. So you have to unenroll your child from public school and then you can take part in the ESA program. So, for instance, I've got a student right now who attends a private school that focuses on children with autism. He's very high functioning. So he comes to my house for an hour every week for a little bit of math tutoring. So his parents have
Mm.
enough in their ESA account to pay for his tuition at the autism school and a little bit of tutoring too.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's
Yeah.
awesome. My next door neighbor, actually, when we were raising our kids when they were like at the age of 5, I remember her specifically asking me the question, and not really asking the question, but saying it's really unfair that I have to pay taxes, but I don't want to send my child to the public school system, and I don't have choice on where that money goes, but I'm forced to pay these taxes.
Yeah. And that is
This
where
really
the
does
school
level the playing field, doesn't it?
it's where the school choice movement started. Unfortunately, it started with a bunch of congressmen who had their kids in private school and they were singing the same song. They're like, why am I paying taxes and tuition? And so
Yeah.
they got the ball rolling back in the 50s. We want to
Yeah.
have some other way of dealing with education. And so that was the initial push on the ball rolling down the hill. And it's become so much more than that.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I think that is where a lot of the negative connotations about school choice originally come from, is that
Okay.
whole entitlement and elitist, my kid's in private school and I don't want to pay taxes thing. And I'm hoping that now that it's becoming more of a national movement, we'll be able to move away from that negative connotation that it has carried over the years.
Yeah.
I'm seeing that happen. I'm seeing that happen.
Yeah. What are some of the common misconceptions that you think tutors have about working with families that could be accessing these funds?
It can be challenging to become a vendor. Different states have different requirements. There's a lot of hoops you got to jump through sometimes. Arizona is abysmally easy. We've had a bit of an argument back and forth between the ESA folks and the school support. They're called SOS here in Arizona. And basically what happened is in the schools, they were so short on teachers that they started putting anybody who had a high school degree into a classroom with a mentor teacher to help them. And so the people over here in ESA who were saying, but we have to have certified teachers. Why do we have to have certified people if you don't have? So they had to lower the standard for us too. So in order to be a vendor in Arizona, the only requirement is that you have a high school diploma, which is
I
kind of
love
sad,
it.
but that's the way it is. And it's nice in some ways because I do have a
Yeah.
tutor who doesn't have a teacher's degree and he's one of my
Yeah.
best tutors. So I'm really glad in his case that a high school diploma was all that was needed.
Exactly.
But there are other states, I was looking into it just last night. There are some states where you have to have a current certification for education in that state in order to be a vendor in their system. So it's different from state to state and everything in between those two. Some will allow any certification that's ever been in place, even if it's expired. Some will allow as long as you have a bachelor's degree in education. Just it's different in every state. And there's 19 states, so there's 19
Yep.
different ways.
Yeah, and some of the states then you will qualify for, and some of the states you won't qualify for. I know I qualified for Iowa, and I do not have a current teacher's license, but I do have the proof from the State Department of Education in Wisconsin here of that I did have a license and what all my licensures were in, and that was
And
enough for them.
I think one thing to keep in mind is that you might come up against what appears to be a roadblock. Don't just walk away. If a state is requiring this and such, go to them and say, hey, would you be willing to accept what I have? And
Yeah,
sometimes the answer is yes. So don't
yeah,
just throw your hands up and say, oh, I don't qualify. Be willing to
yeah.
advocate for your student and say, you know what? I'm teaching kids all over the country. Why can't I teach kids in Iowa?
Exactly, exactly. And it's so funny you say that because I remember when I was filling out, it could have been an exit for me when I saw that they needed a license to prove that I was a teacher. And at that point, I had two choices. Do I submit what I have, even though I know that it's not a current license, or do I walk away? And I thought,
What do you
who
have
does
to
it
learn?
hurt for me to submit it?
Yeah,
It didn't hurt anybody. And then when I got the message that they approved it, I was like, there we go. Yes.
yeah,
All
yeah,
right.
yeah. And honestly, because these programs are all so new, a lot of times the people who are running them are learning as they go. And maybe they're
Mhm.
figuring out, you know what, we don't need an Iowa State teaching certification. As long as they're certified somewhere, that's all that matters. Or as long as they took education in college and graduated, that's all that we really need. And in
Yeah.
Arizona, as long as you graduate from high school.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Are there any mistakes that you have seen tutors make when they try to start entering this area and qualifying for
I would say
a
probably the
vendor?
thing that I see the most is thinking that by becoming a vendor, you're glitching. Do we want to start again on that?
Oh, ahead.
Okay. I would say the biggest mistake that I see people make is to think that because you've become a vendor in a state, you're going to automatically just find people are going to come to you and say, I'm ready to hire you. Many of the states have a pretty substantial disconnect between I'm a vendor and parents in my state can find me. And so
Mm,
just because you've become a vendor doesn't mean people are going to come knocking on your door. And
right.
so a lot of people put a lot of energy into becoming a vendor when really what you need to be doing is connecting with parents in that state who are beginning to tap into that. And then
Right.
once you've got a client, you can usually become a vendor fairly quickly. It's not a long process in most states. It's a week, maybe two at the most. So focus your
Suggest to them
energy in the same
first on
place you have
getting the
it.
student in that
Yeah,
state
yeah,
before trying to become a vendor in
yeah.
that state.
Yeah, because most of the time I've seen a lot of people go out and, oh, I'm going to become a vendor in Florida and Arizona and this other place. And they spend a lot of time and energy on becoming vendors when really that time and energy would be better spent doing what they've already been doing all along, looking for clients. And then once you
Yeah.
have a client in that state, then by all means start jumping through hoops. But like I said, it can be even sometimes just a day or two to get approved in a vendor system. It's not a big deal. They're finding out what they need, submitting it. And usually the longest part of it is getting established in their system as a financial place where you've got to link your bank account to their payment system. And that's usually what takes the longest. And that's like usually 3 days.
Got it.
So,
Got it. Okay. Yeah, that's actually how I got hooked up with Florida right out of the gate.
yeah.
They had these funds that I could my client could tap on
Yep.
into and get reimbursed. And they didn't have the whole class wallet thing or anything like that
Yeah,
at that
often it's
point
just
in time.
scholarship dollars and they pay you and then they submit for reimbursement. That's
Yep.
often the case. So,
Yeah, it wasn't a lot. It was like $500, but to the
mhm,
parent, they're like, "Let's still $500.
right.
So
And sometimes it makes the
let's help
difference
our
between
folks."
I can afford you and I can't afford you. A lot of times it's that difference between we can make this happen because I've got this money over here that I can use, that I can only use for this type of thing.
Yeah. And scholarships too, they can vary so widely.
Very
Like that
much.
state was like for that specific one was $500, but a lot of times parents are able to tap into $5,000 or
Oh, yeah.
$6,000 for
My
services.
daughter
So,
gets $8,000 a quarter.
wow.
Yeah.
Wow. And that money is just sitting there, like waiting for these kids to
Yep.
access it.
Yep.
It's not stealing money from any
Mm-mm.
pot or anything like that. The money
Nope.
is there
Yeah, and
specifically
I
for
think that's
this.
one of the things you have to keep as part of the conversation. A lot of times the teachers, and I love them, there a lot of them are my friends, former colleagues, they're saying, oh, these ESA programs, they're stealing money from the schools. They're not. In fact, actually, here in Arizona and in a lot of states, a percentage of that money comes to my daughter. A percentage of that money stays with the school. And the
Yeah.
school is able to claim my daughter as being in their system and get their federal money still. And so
Mm.
the school is actually getting more money for fewer students to serve. So it's a win-win, but you just really can't convince the SOS folks of that.
There's always going to be two sides of it, isn't there?
Yeah,
You got the pros and you got the cons. You got the
yeah.
people that are for it. You got the people that are going to be against it. But at the end of the day, it's really important for us as tutors to know that this exists, especially when you are in the mindset of thinking that tutoring shouldn't just be for the elite.
Right.
Tutoring should be something that's available to all, and everybody should have the ability to have access to good tutoring, not just the free services or people who are volunteering, but like really good tutoring. Everybody should have access to those kinds of services and not have to
Yeah.
go to cheaper options that are not going to get the same types of results
Big box
for
tutoring
their
companies. And
kid.
yeah. Yeah. And I really think that's the key is to just keep the needs of the student at the forefront. Student has the needs. The student has funding available. Let's make that funding something they can tap into. So
Yeah. What is one mindset shift that you would love every tutor to take after watching your session?
I think just to see the power of what's out there, to see
Yeah.
where tutoring is headed. I think a lot of us have that vision, but I think they don't realize how much this movement is lighting a jet rocket underneath it and
Yeah.
taking it into the future fast and professionalizing our career, our, what we do, because as people start tapping into these ESA dollars and realizing that they're in the driver's seat for their child's education, they're going to need more and more people who do what we do. Because
Yeah.
sure, they can navigate a lot of it themselves, but oftentimes they need a professional to help them with some aspect of it. Like myself, I mostly market to homeschool parents. My ideal client is a homeschool mom who can do it all except the math.
Yeah.
And now all of us are going to be in that boat of, you know what, I have an expertise that I can offer to parents who are taking the driver's seat with their child's
Yep.
education. And they might be able to handle all of it except for the part that I can help them with. And I think
Yes.
I think seeing ourselves as a solution to that, a lot of times what we're helping them with might be the thing that's keeping them from throwing in the towel and sending their kid back to public school. And not to diss public school. Public school is a valid option. It's always going to be there. It's always going to need to be there. But if they're making a decision between big box education or personalized education, and the only thing keeping them from making that decision to personalize is one subject that they're not comfortable with, then that's where we come in. And
Yeah.
that's always been where we come in. But I think it's about to just really be ignited, especially if this does actually go national, which is being discussed.
Yeah. Yeah, and that excites me. That
Yeah.
really excites me.
Yeah.
Like I'm not like fearful of it or nervous about
Mm.
it. I'm excited about the opportunities that it opens up for other students to be able to really get results at the end of the day and have support in being able to pay for that. And other
Right.
people in the past, they've maybe had to go to other family members and be
Mm.
able to have conversations with them about borrowing money, or maybe they had
Sacrifices.
to think about how do I, yeah, make choices in how they are spending their money and recalculate where they're budgeting money to go for certain
Yeah. I
things. And
actually had a parent pay me with their child's college fund one time. One
oh
month.
my gosh.
Called me and said, your check is going to come from such and such because we're paying you out of her college fund. And I was like, what? She said, you don't understand. She's not going to go to college if she doesn't work with you. And I'm like, but it still just tore my heart out that they had to do that. And I'm just really thrilled that we'll have some options to offer people to say, there's money available you can tap into. Let me help you with that.
Exactly. Exactly. Now, you've attended other impact events that we've had. What has your experience been like at the different impact events?
It always just ignites that passion. It's sometimes easy in our career, in our what we do, to feel isolated and feel like I'm just here doing my thing in front of my computer with my students in my computer. And I love Impact because it helps me see that I'm not alone. It helps me see that there's an amazing community out there that is doing
Yeah.
what I do and can support me in what I do and that can come alongside me and celebrate my wins and I can celebrate theirs. And I just love the community aspect of it. And I always learn. There's always somebody there with an expertise that I haven't tapped into, just like I'm bringing my unique expertise to this one. There's always interesting things to learn from all the various speakers who have their own little expertises.
Exactly. And I think that's what is so cool is there's people that are talking about all these different aspects. We've got AI is coming in. How can it make our running our business easier? How can it help us with our lesson planning? How can it help with
Yeah.
all of these different aspects and marketing? Like what are some different ways that we can think about the marketing of our services and the networking? The networking. It's always amazing to network with other tutors when you get
Yes.
the opportunity to pass. I just passed on a new student to Fabrizio
Uh,
that the parent there was another person, she was an academic coach and she was struggling with being able to specifically get to the physics help detailed help that they needed. She was able to do the studying aspect without a problem, but she felt like they needed like deeper concept knowledge and
Yeah.
a different way of being taught it. And I was like, I got the person for you.
Yeah, you
Let's
knew
see if they're
somebody.
taking students. I know somebody. And I love being able to pass on students that way to other tutors,
Mhm.
especially when they're in those beginning stages of their business and they are wondering, is this even a viable path for me to be able to
Yeah.
take? It
Well, and another
absolutely
thing that
is.
I really love is that myself being a little bit further down the road, level 5 in the game of tutoring, there are still things from levels 1 and 2 that I need to be reminded of on a regular basis. And so I think even if you're thinking to yourself, I'm a really advanced tutor, I don't really need the help of this community, there is still great value in this community to help you pick up those little holes you might have left along the way and go back and fill them and make sure you're doing. For myself, what's happened is that I had a marketing stream that was really pretty cream. I was doing pretty good getting stuff through this marketing stream. And so I wasn't paying a lot of attention to a lot of the marketing parts in levels 1, 2, and 3. And I've now that stream has dried up. And now I'm having to circle back and do some of those marketing things that I skipped
Yeah.
on. And so it's really nice to know. I started to panic. Oh my goodness, what am I going to do? Oh, you know what? I've got a system. I know how to work it. I just haven't worked it yet. So
Yes. I love that because we never know when something is going to dry up or not
yeah,
work the way it used to, or
yeah,
those kinds of things. We just assume that things will just keep going as normal. But
yeah.
with that philosophy, I find that the tutoring business can be just a big, huge
Oh,
roller
big time.
coaster,
Yeah,
right? Like you're going to have times where you have more students and then you have times that they dip. So, how do you control those dips more
yeah,
and what things are working today to be able to get those students?
yep.
Oh, and what that is generative engine optimization. Like, how can you get found inside of ChatGPT and those kinds of things as well, and start taking advantage of those generative engines? And there's just so much information to learn,
Yes,
and
there
I
is.
love learning it all. So I love that I get to organize this and be at the forefront of having all of this information right there that I can dig into my backpack and utilize at any point in time. And it's absolutely incredible. And this community wouldn't be anything without people like you. So, thanks for being a leader in our Insiders Secrets Club
I
3.0.
enjoy it.
And thank you so much for agreeing to be a speaker at Impact and share your wisdom with the wider community that hasn't tapped on into our private community yet. So it's
All
really
right.
amazing. So thank you so much. I can't wait to share this information with other people.